sorry for the delay. I call this meeting to order. Please rise and salute the flag. This meeting is in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Law and has been duly advertised in the newspaper as an official meeting. Roll call.
Mrs. Gardella? Mr. McCarron?
Present.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Present.
Mrs. Rivera?
Present.
Mrs. Cass?
Present.
Mr. Palmieri?
Present. I need a motion for approval of the agenda with addendums.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I now turn this meeting over to Mrs. Permilli for her superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Palmieri, and again, I want to just thank everybody in the audience for their patience tonight. We started late, but we needed to take advantage of an opportunity to get this word out even further. So I do want to start with the end of the 23-24 school year. It was a very lovely end for our students. We had our moving up ceremonies that were beautiful. We had our promotion from middle school to high school ceremonies and our high school graduation ceremonies. And we were fortunate enough to be able to have the middle school and high school outside. The weather cooperated, although very, very hot. A lot of us melted, but it was nice that our families could really open the invite to all of their family members to be able to see the graduates. I want to thank all of the staff. That is a huge event that takes many hands in many departments to put together for a wonderful ceremony for our students and our families. They were lovely events. I do also want to point out tonight, before we get into some of the budget items here, that we had several other things that were beautiful in this district. Recently, we had our valedictorians, salutatorians, some of which you'll see the slides behind me, and congratulations to them. We also had our Jackson Memorial baseball team won the Central Jersey Division Title IV championship. That is incredible. Just excellent. I love the picture of them that's up there, really demonstrating their excitement, the hard work. As you all know, we value the importance of our extracurriculars, our athletics, and our activities. They're so important for our students. Not only as a team did they perform well and won several other different types of acknowledgments throughout the season, we also had individual students who were recognized on that team. Just want to say congratulations to them and to the coaches. Wonderful job. And what an excellent way. Just an excellent way to end the school year. And so I do want to point out that that's what we wanted for our students, was to end their year in a happy manner and a successful manner. So as I pointed out, those activities, those extracurriculars are extremely important to the development of every student, and we value them here, and we're going to continue to fight to keep those things for our students. I know many of you are here this evening to hear about the tentative budget. Mr. Baginski and I are going to present the tentative budget that I think we've made it clear we don't agree with. We don't like this budget, and this is a budget that we fought against every step of the way, and you're going to hear more about that this evening. So, Mr. Baginski, let's go to the podium and let's share this information.
So I want to begin tonight by saying that what has transpired over the last 7 years with regard to the funding of our school district is definitely not okay. The reduction schedule put forth by the state has forced an annual painful elimination of people, programs, and resources that has brought our very proud school district to the brink of inoperability. The information that the superintendent and I will be sharing tonight is the very negative byproduct of a state funding formula that prevented the necessary adjustments for a rapidly changing district with some very unique needs. Please know that we do not necessarily support these reductions or believe that they bring us any closer to providing the thorough and efficient education that our students are entitled to. In fact, we honestly believe that these reductions unfortunately move us even further from that expectation. However, tonight the superintendent and I will be presenting a tentative budget that is balanced based on the many recommendations from state and county education officials and in fulfillment of the legal requirement that we both have to put forth a balanced budget. As a 22-year administrator, I've worked in almost every leadership capacity within this school district. I have devoted most of my professional life to building and supporting the programs that have helped make this educational community safe and successful, and it breaks my heart to be placed into this position to essentially undo all of that work and much of the work that the people in this room have done. That is not acceptable to me, and I have no intention of giving up the fight for this school district. In short, Jackson deserves better than what you're about to see. So the purpose of tonight is really to accomplish a couple of things. One is to explain the budget process and the state-mandated budget timelines, the impact of recent legislation on budgeting, and how that has impacted the budget process. We're also going to present the balanced tentative budget and discuss the impact of cuts. The Board of Education tonight will vote on a potential tax levy increase that was made possible through legislation, and also the approval of the tentative budget. So this is a slide that has been up for the last 7 years at every single budget presentation that this school district has done, including the one that Ms. Permilli and I did in March. This illustrates the 7 years of the S2 cuts and what they have done to our school district. Over the 7 years, we have had to cut 215 positions, including administration, certified staff, non-certified staff. We've had to increase class sizes. We've put forth and had to postpone many curriculum adoptions, many needed facilities improvements, all to accommodate these reductions in state aid. And when you look at them face value, you say, there's $22.4 million in cuts over 7 years. How come the school district couldn't deal with that? Well, one of the things to consider is the compounding nature of these cuts. So back in 2017, 2018, we received approximately $50 million in state aid. This coming school year, that's less than half, just about half, $25 million in state aid. And you see every year that reduction. So it's not just a one-off shot to the budget, it compounds year to year and reduces the amount of revenue we have coming into the school district. If the school district had just been frozen in 2017, 2018, you're talking about a budget that would have had $87 million more over 7 years. That's more than $10 million a year. That would have been a total game changer for this school district. If the budget had just went down by an enrollment decrease, proportional to our enrollment, and our enrollment has not decreased anywhere near what the cuts have indicated should be happening, we would have had an additional $52 million over 7 years. So the compounding nature of these cuts have decimated the revenue side of the school district. And when you look around the state and what the other districts have had to endure, there really isn't too many other school districts, Jackson being the exception, that has shown up on this rather infamous list of the top 10 school districts for loss of dollars in state aid every single year. You can see as it moves from the first year of S2 to what will be next year. This is not a list we're proud to be on, and this is a list that this school district has had to, unfortunately, shoulder the load for addressing. As far as the budget itself, we went into this budget process very much in the hole. We built a budget last year on a $10.2 million loan that we were seeking from the state. And so that was an empty spot in the budget last year that we filled with that placeholder. On top of that, we had to deal with some very significant decreasing revenues. Other than the state aid, we have not been fully funded or even near funded for our transportation aid and our security aid, which shows up every single year on our state aid notice that we receive. And every single year for 7 years, it's the exact same number. In fact, they even show you what you should be getting every single year. And in this year, when we received that state aid notice for transportation, we should have been receiving, on the state aid notice, $7.7 million, based on all of our figures. We received $601,355, the same number we received for 7 years. Same thing for security aid. Same thing, I didn't put it up here, same thing for special education aid. So those numbers are generated by actual numbers in schools and for services, and we've been well below what we should have been receiving in terms of funding if we were being funded through the proper state aid. When you look at the COVID era, we received some money for the COVID, during the COVID time. We spent the last $1.6 million of that money basically to create an operating budget for this year in 23-24. It amounted to be $1.6 million of salaries and general supplies. And so we knew that wasn't going to carry past June 30th of this year. So if we want to continue to have those things, we would have to find it in the new budget. Lost revenue. Surplus. We started the year with a $900,000 surplus. For a school district our size, that should be more than double that to start a year with surplus. That's like your savings, your emergency savings for your household. We were at times during the course of this school year thinking that we were going to start with almost nothing for the 24-25 school year. So we started with the bare minimum and built off that. And the tax levy cap. Every single year, this board has gone to the maximum allowed by law, the 2% tax levy. So that is the most that they can raise taxes. And so they have gone to that every year. In fact, this year we were actually going to seek a health benefit waiver to try to even exceed the 2%. So this is what we went into the budget process with in terms of revenue. In terms of expenses, you don't have to look beyond what even is in your own households. So for fixed costs out of your control, all of them go up, and all of them have been going up. Now keep in mind, we can only raise taxes by 2%, but you're talking about your utilities, diesel fuel, natural gas, electric, special education out-of-district placements, which constantly go up every year. This year, our insurance premiums went up very significant. We also, you saw the transportation aid. Our non-public students that we transport have gone up 785% since the start of S2. All right, curricular and instructional needs. We have postponed curriculum adoptions year after year. And I know we have a lot of teachers and paraprofessionals in the room. You have felt the burden of having to use curriculum resources that are out of date. And we are sorely in need of a curriculum adoption. And then rising inflation. You're not going to find a 3-year period of more rapid inflation than what we've experienced in 2022, 2023, and 2024 in recent history. All of those things factor into, if you need things, it costs more. And then lastly, as if seeking an advancement on state aid wasn't enough, we had to build in the loan, the advanced state aid repayment, which would be $600,000 per year into the budget. It's a line item in the budget. So these are all things that we had to go into the budget process with. We presented a budget on March 20th, a tentative budget. At that time, we presented an unbalanced budget, which had essentially a deficit of almost $31 million, $30.9 million. That was on March 20th. And I think I came to many of the faculties. I'm seeing a lot of teachers in here. I spoke at those. Ms. Permilio may have spoken at a couple of them to sound the alarm that this is a major deficit for this school district. On May 7th, we were able to have a proposed budget hearing between May 20th and May 7th. We made $4.2 million in more cuts. We actually cut 27 positions at that time. We also, thanks to the township, who took on the full cost of the SROs. And then we had to reduce overtime subs and supplies, and we had to make a decision to co-op a number of our sports teams at the high school to get down to our $26.6 million deficit on May 7th. When we got to May 14th, legislation passed, and the legislation did a couple of things. One of the things it did is it restored 45% of our original aid cut for this year. So basically, it put $2 million back into the school district budget. So you see the deficit going from 26.682 down to 24.675. All right, so that was due to that legislation. That legislation also allowed for the action that is being voted on tonight, which is the potential increase of the tax levy by 9.9%. And it also did a third thing, which is it pushed the entire timeline for the budget back to the timeline goes to the latest being July 22nd. So basically pushes the budget process back by 2 months. So the advocacy that our parents, our staff, our community did, the legislation helped us, all right? That is something that, this community should look at and say, your voice mattered. Where we sit now, we still are at a $18.1 million budget deficit, an unbalanced budget. We have been told by the county office and the state via the county office that we must balance this budget. And so tonight you're going to see what a balanced budget looks like, trying to bridge the final gap here from $18.1 million. It's going to mean large systemic cuts, and I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent, who's going to talk a little bit specifically about what's happening.
Thank you, Mr. Baginski, and I need to echo the way that Mr. Baginski started this presentation. We are in agreement, we feel the same way, and I think you all know that about us, that this is not something we wanted to do. We have fought against this. We have, we have tried to educate decision makers, we've advocated, we have submitted countless documents and data to the county office, to the Department of Education, so that they could seek to understand what is happening here in Jackson and that this is a revenue problem, not an expenditure problem. We have asked for all of you to advocate and to write and to email, and I want to thank you all. I know all of you did those things. I do believe it was heard. I do believe that they see some of it, and I think perhaps in the horizon there might be some change, but it's too late. We need help now. And this is very painful for everybody in this community, and we recognize that. This is something we do not want to do, but we are being told we must balance a budget. It is in code to balance a budget, or we cannot operate in the 24-25 school year. Hence, we had to put out this information about what a balanced budget would look like. So basically, that's what this slide explains. We were working hard and advocating right up to the last minute, right to the last week of school. And it was during the last week of school in which we learned that there was no wiggle room here. You must balance a budget, is what we're being told, or you can't operate. So we did make a very aware decision that on the last few days of school, not to make this announcement, to obviously impact our students' celebrations for promotion and graduation. Now, I know some people may disagree with that, but I think that our students needed to have celebratory time. And we're going to get further into the presentation and hear more about the opportunity for families and our staff to have a little bit of closure. So we do have 3 very important votes this evening on our agenda. We, believe it or not, did not even have a balanced budget or I should say, we did not have our requested advanced state aid for the 23-24 school year until the first or second week in June. We had asked for the $10 million, and every month from the time that we asked, we were scrutinized. We had to provide data and documents of our cash flow, and eventually the recommendation went from the commissioner to the treasurer department, and we received $6 million in advanced state aid. or as we have referred in the past, as a loan, to close out the 23-24 school year, so the board needs to vote on that final budget tonight to close that out. As Mr. Baginski mentioned, there is legislation that has been passed based on I really believe the legislators responded to some of the voices and the education that we were trying to provide, not just here in Jackson, but the other S2 districts that had been cut. And so we have been capped for a very long time at a 2% tax increase every year. And obviously, when your expenditures continue to go up out of your control and you can only bring in 2% more, you're going to hit that fiscal cliff, especially when you're being slashed state aid by the millions. So there was legislation passed recently that will allow a one-time increase to that tax levy at a staggering 9.9% increase. I don't think that's what any of us were asking for. I think it is a very difficult decision to have to make for the community, for the board, I should say for the board to have to vote on something like that. That's a lot of percentage increase in 1 year that should have been spread upon multiple years. Nevertheless, what that does is reduce our deficit from 26 million to 18 million. Imagine if we needed to cut 26 million from this budget. The other vote tonight is on the tentative budget. As you know, you've heard from both Mr. Baginski and myself, we don't recommend these cuts. This is because we are being forced to make a balanced budget. Should the board make the vote tonight and they pass this, that's one thing. If they do not pass this, it then goes to our county office and the fiscal monitor, our state monitor, to review and make recommendations on whether they will follow what we've put in the tentative budget or whether they will suggest different cuts. And the process for that then would continue on through to our July 17th public hearing, which is July 17th, in which we have a final public hearing and a vote on the final budget. Sorry. So what does this mean? You all have heard from me last week what it means. I'm going to review what this balanced budget looks like. It is heartbreaking and it is devastating and unthinkable. And as Mr. Baginski said, we don't believe it provides the best education we can provide to our students. In order to, and you're going to hear more about this later on in the presentation, but in order to make a balanced budget, we did announce the closing of Rosenauer Elementary School and preparing it to sell. We also announced 70 positions would be eliminated. This includes all positions across all departments and brings us to a staggering 285 positions over the last 7 years that have been lost. And as we all know, working in the schools, that means more work for all of us in helping our students to prepare for their education. It's staggering to think that that's okay. It is mostly going to be done through attrition, which means retirements and resignations that are open, so that we have very few positions that will, people who will actually lose their jobs. We're still working through that. And with every resignation we get, we shift somebody else into that hole so that we can save a position. We need people to be working with our students. Something that is very, very difficult, along with all of this is difficult, but this is extremely a safety concern, is eliminating courtesy busing. And again, you're going to hear more information about that in a few moments, but that concerns the safety of our students. And you're going to hear about how that has continually been suggested to us in almost every meeting we have had about what should be cut from our budget because it's not required. We'll talk more about that in a moment. This also means reducing high school athletics. We have not determined what that looks like yet. We'll spend the next 3 weeks doing that. But please know we will do everything in our power to have the least amount of impact on our students. Drastic cuts. The schools already felt this. We had already announced this before the end of the school year, that the 24-25 budgets are drastically cut for school supplies, for department supplies, up to 50% in many cases. Very hard to digest. Reducing our substitute lines as well, looking at less building-based subs, using more daily subs, eliminating all of the late buses, again, not required. are mandated, eliminating the middle school holding center where our staff would stay after and help students stay safe before they got on the late buses, eliminating our after-school enrichment program. We'll need to figure out a way to do that throughout the day. Reducing co-curriculars, advisors, and clubs. Again, we will work over the next few weeks to have the least amount of impact so that our students still have opportunities in these areas. We know how important they are. And reducing the budget for event staff and homebound instruction as well. So I'm going to turn it back to Mr. Baginski, who's going to talk a little bit more about the courtesy busing, and then we'll talk a little bit more further about Rosenauer.
So as Ms. Permilli said, this has been something, a topic, the courtesy busing topic, that has been continuously brought up in discussions with officials who are trying to close the budget gap and giving us recommendations. And in fact, the first meeting I ever was in was, well, you do have courtesy busing still in Jackson. And that's clearly somebody who's never driven the roads or walked the roads or had children who walked the roads or driven the roads in Jackson saying that. Because the reason for courtesy busing and the reason why it could even be considered is the simple answer to that is because it's not required by law. So I understand why that might be suggested from an outsider's perspective. And in fact, there is a cost associated with it. We bus, and I'm going to call them non-mandated transportation because courtesy busing is only one subset of that, but we are not mandated to bus, and we 1,848 students at about a cost of about $1.5 million in our budget. Now, who is mandated to be bused? The students who are mandated to bus are students who reside remote, that is more than 2.5 miles for high school or more than 2 miles for elementary or middle school from their assigned school of attendance. So those students would be considered mandated transportation students. Mandated transportation students are also students with disabilities who reside remote from the school they're assigned to attend, or if their IEP says that they have necessary for transportation. And then also the preschool program, which is a grant-funded program, also requires that we offer transportation to the preschool students in the preschool program. So these are students who, by code, are mandated students who have to be transported. So the next part of the code is who is not mandated, who can receive transportation, and the state would say may be transported. All right, so the board and the school district has the ability to elect to charge the parent or legal guardian all or part of the cost of the service in accordance with state code. And if it's not charged, it's what's referred to as courtesy busing. And so that is largely what happens here. We don't have a subscription busing service. We have never offered that in the past. If the district did charge, that's what it'd be considered. It'd be called subscription busing. There's another subset of this, and whenever a district or board of education agrees to provide non-mandated transportation for reasons that are related to hazard, all right, that is what's considered hazardous busing. And that's really the situation that we have here largely in Jackson. Not totally, but largely. Another part of this code is the idea that municipal governments, the township, can elect to pay for the cost of transportation for students who are less than 2 or 2.5 miles, and they could also decide that they want to offer it as a subscription service as well. So there is a bit of a shared responsibility there with the municipal government. And as far as Jackson goes with regard to the hazardous busing, we have a regulation, and it's Regulation 8600, and it actually spells out some of the criteria that would be decided upon with the school district working in conjunction with the township to make a determination that routes were hazardous. And you could see the little list of things, and it includes roads that we have here in Jackson: traffic volume, average vehicle velocity, existence or absence of sufficient sidewalk space. So these are all factors by our regulation that we should be considering when we make a decision if we are going to provide hazardous busing or not. And that is something that can and should be done collaboratively with the township. One of the things that I want to make crystal clear tonight is our commitment to the students and parents of Jackson Township. We, the superintendent and I, will not compromise student safety. We will consider all possible alternatives to the elimination of courtesy busing for the 24-25 school year. I remind you that this is a tentative budget. We have time until the July 17th final budget, and we will provide you with a proposed solution or alternative to many of the concerns, if not all of the concerns, that all of you have and all of the community members have with regard to the safety of your students, because we share that same concern. Some of the possible alternatives, and I'm not going to say that this is what's going to happen, it could be something like this or a combination of this, would be advocating with the state and county to prioritize the restoration of hazardous routes through some sort of funding source, the prioritization of already budgeted items, so basically finding something else to eliminate or reduce so that we can pay for all or portion of the courtesy busing, a collaboration with the township officials to determine which routes are courtesy and which routes are hazardous. You should know that the mayor has been nothing but supportive of the superintendent and the school district with regard to his concern for courtesy busing, so the township collaboration with us would be essential. The offering of subscription busing, not something we've never done but is allowed for in the code, should also be considered. There are other school districts that offer it. And the proposal of a possible special question for voters to approve the permanent restoration of funding of hazardous bus routes. This is something that most recently happened in Monroe Township. And when it becomes a special question, right, and it passes as a special question, it becomes permanently a part of the budget that cannot be removed for future. So these are some of the things that we're committing to between now and July 17th when we propose a final budget. So I'm going to turn it back over to the superintendent to talk a little bit more about Rosenauer.
Mr. Irwin, can you forward? My remote isn't working. Thank you. So, Rosenauer, we all know this is heartbreaking. This is not anything we wanted to do. In fact, we spoke deeply about this last year. We still have students, elementary students in trailers, many trailers. And what should be happening probably is redistricting and keeping our schools and eliminating the trailers. However, our hands are tied when it comes to the dollar amount that we need to close this gap. The other thing that is a possibility that could have happened was leasing and renting a building instead of selling it, so that you have a steady revenue source. That would be ideal. Those are the things that we've talked about and planned for. However, we have been faced with this massive deficit and told we have to close this gap. And it's, as you heard Mr. Baginski say, there's only certain ways that we receive revenue. And how do you make such massive cuts when your biggest expenses in a district are staffing and your facilities? Cutting supply lines are not going to get us to $18 million. This is not anything we take lightly. We are just as devastated. I'm a 30-year educator, and this is not anything that I've ever wanted to do. I believe in expanding programs and opportunities for students, and this has been very obviously difficult for everybody. And we needed to close a gap that was very large, and this provides a large portion of funding to close that $18 million gap in order that we didn't have to cut even deeper. There is a process that needs to happen in order to sell a school. The school has not been sold. The school, I've had no conversation with anybody about a price tag of that school. There's a process, and we will begin that process once we have a final budget, which means paperwork through the DOE, approval through the DOE, public communication about it, and I believe there needs to be public board motion on it as well for approvals. So there is a very transparent process that needs to happen, and that is the process that we will follow in order to sell that building. The next steps for Rosenauer, and the staff that are in the audience who were with me yesterday on the virtual meeting that we held know much of this, is that we'll continue to work in the next few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, to make assignments for our students and our staff. And notifications of placements will be as soon as possible. We're providing 3 weeks time for us to do this. However, if we're able to do it sooner, we will. We know that everybody's eager. The staff will be provided opportunity, in fact, an entire month, to pack their things. We'll provide the things that they need, the boxes and the labeling and the tape, and the availability to move those things. For our students, we will consider reassignment based on the needs of our students, the class size distribution, equity throughout the district, and proximity to the student's home. So thinking proximity of the student's home, we're looking at placements at like Crawford, Johnson, and Holman. That's what would make sense. We have preschool students who will be included with those moves. Last year, we had started the process of opening a preschool wing in Memorial High School, this building, a separate wing that will be separated through doors and separate entrances and fitted for preschoolers. We paused that last year because of the budget and other things, but we have put that back on the table, and it is happening so that we will have enough room in all of our buildings for preschool students, and we can continue that program as well for our community. Students will be assigned to that accordingly. Again, think about proximity of where the students live. So the Rosenauer preschool students would be more assigned to like Crawford, Holman, Johnson, and our overflow students from Elms and Switlick would be more assigned to the Memorial Wing. So we are still working through all of those details, and we'll get that information to everybody as soon as possible. Again, I know everybody's eager. Most importantly, we knew we were going to do this, felt it was important for everybody in this community, our current staff, our past staff, current students, past staff, to have an opportunity for closure of Rosenauer. So we are planning an event, and we're going to work with our staff at Rosenauer, our PTA at Rosenauer, to plan an opportunity and an event over the summer where everybody can come and have closure and have an opportunity to say the wonderful things that we know have happened in that building. So we will continue to plan that, and more information will come. The next steps for the district with this tentative budget, please remember it is a tentative budget. We will continue to work on it, continue to try to have the least amount of impact as possible. We've done that for 6 years, and we've been very transparent that it was getting more difficult and more difficult, which is why we have pleaded and asked people in the decision-making powers to help this district. The cuts are too deep. We will hold the public hearing on July 17th at the board meeting, again presenting a final budget and a vote to the Board of Education. We're going to continue to work with our township and our community in seeking ways that we can help lessen the impact, similar to what Mr. Baginski just mentioned. Courtesy busing, how do we work having less of an impact? How do we have less of an impact on our athletics and co-curriculars? And as always, we will continue to advocate. We're not stopping. We're not stopping to advocate. We hope for some miracle, but as right now, we need to be able to balance this budget and present it and be transparent on what it means if we have to do all of this. This is what this means, and it looks like right now we're being told we need to do it. I'm now going to turn it back over to Mr. Baginski to conclude with some numbers for the budget and what that means.
So this is a general summary of the 2024-2025 tentative budget. You see the comparison versus what we had for 23-24 and the change from one year to the next. A couple notable things. One thing here is the local revenue. All right, we had our most ambitious year in 23-24 for local revenue. That's to try and bring in other sources other than state funding, and we're putting forth a budget that is even more ambitious than what we were able to accomplish this year. The general fund tax levy that is being presented is the one with the 9.9%, but know that that has not been voted on by the school board yet. The state aid, from one year to the next, you see the state aid decrease. And then also you see this in the revenue side, the state aid advancement of aid that we received this year is $6 million. And because we are putting forth a balanced budget, the expectation is that from the state would be that we do not put anything in the budget for a state aid advancement for the 24-25 budget. A couple other things down the bottom, federal state programs, you see that decreasing. Part of it is decreasing because of the ESSER funding, the COVID era funding sunsetting. Also, you see there the funding related to our Title I through IV. We always budget as an acceptable practice 85% of the previous budget. So that brings us to a grand total budget of $165,689,000 for the 24-25 school year. For the taxpayer, that would mean, and remember, this is the tax impact. The budget that I just presented includes the 9.9% increase in the tax levy. With that 9.9% increase in the tax levy, the average homeowner, which the average homeowner is an assessed value of $330,000 in Jackson, would be impacted by a $146 increase for 1 year for the average homeowner because of that 9.9% increase in the tax levy. So just to close, we've been through difficult times during the last few years. I want to give respect to our superintendent, who has been our leader through some of those very, very difficult times. But we have always pulled together to protect our students' education and experiences. We can get through this difficult time by supporting one another so that our district remains a strong place for learning and connections for students. So the superintendent and I are going to return to our seats, and we're going to take any questions from the board.
So I asked the board if there are any questions about the tentative budget that we do not agree with.
I have a question for Mr. Baginski. Do you happen to know, like, with your presentation when you were talking about subscription busing that other districts do, what on average would that cost a parent?
The cost has a limit. You can't charge more than what it costs for the route. You can't charge more than what it costs for the actual route for the student on a per pupil basis. But I've seen other school districts that do it set really any dollar amount. It could be $200, $400.
So it could potentially be different per student, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The school districts that I've seen, they do it it's a per pupil cost.
Okay. And then my other question is hazardous busing. I think I missed it. I think you said it, but I think I missed it. Is that paid by the town or the parent? Or a combo?
Yeah, hazardous busing. If we would determine routes as hazardous, we would be responsible to bus the students.
Okay.
At a cost to the district and/or to the township.
So that's where the special question would come in.
A special question could what's that? Yeah. Yep. We could do a special question would potentially pay for. Set a dollar amount that would have to be built into the budget to pay for courtesy busing. And just like when we did a special question for armed security in the elementary schools, once it gets approved by the voters, it has to be funded. It's funded. It's part of the tax levy, right? And it has to be funded in perpetuity.
But is it too late because you have to wait for the next election cycle? What about September and October?
The window of time to run the next special election opportunity would be in September. And the timeline for submission to the county clerk's office would be July 19th.
Okay.
If the board decided to submit a special question.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Mr. Palmieri, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Permilli. At this time, we'll have our standing committees that met previously before this meeting to go over There are committee agendas. We had Buildings and Grounds meet, Chairperson Mr. McCarron.
Yes, capital improvement projects that happen district-wide. At Liberty, the nurse's office, new HVAC compressor was installed. Holman had a roof repaired over the new section breezeway area to the gym. Switlick pre-K, new exhaust fans with LED lighting installed. Crawford, new control panel installed for the sewer lift station. Liberty and Memorial home side stadium bleachers were power washed. And Getz, a 60-ton HVAC chiller, was repaired. Memorial Transportation paving project scheduled to start on June 24th. And elementary school playground project start date was June 20th. Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. McCarron. And we had policy, chaired by Ms. Cass.
The Policy Committee met on April 29th. The members in attendance were myself, Mrs. Barocas, Mrs. Gardella, Mrs. Parmilli, and Mrs. Godletsky. We met to discuss the table policies from the May 15th board meeting. These policies are mandated by the state. Policy 2260 verbiage was streamlined and follows the state guidelines according to the mandate. Policies 1140, 1523, and 5750 were reviewed and are mandates as well. We are compliant with the mandates.
Thank you, Ms. Cass. I need a motion for approval of policy first reading.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes. Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the minutes, the official board meeting, May 7th, 2024, special budget overview meeting, the closed session meeting, May 14th, 2024, and the official board meeting, May 14th, 2024, business meeting.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of the bill list.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion for approval of treasurers and board secretaries' reports.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes. I need a motion to open the public forum on agenda items only. We will hold another public forum during this meeting for other questions. This public forum will be for questions on agenda items only.
Motion. Second.
Please sign in and state your name and whether or not you are a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once on the topic until all others have been heard.
My name is Kathy Lynch. I am a Jackson resident. I'm also a Jackson teacher, a Jackson parent, and a Jackson alumni. I attended elementary, middle, and high school in the district, as did my husband. When we decided to buy a home in Jackson, one of the reasons we did was the school district. I completed all of my student teaching in Jackson, beginning with 3rd grade at Rosenauer. I taught in another district for 12 years, but my heart brought me back to Jackson. I gave up tenure and seniority to take a position in Jackson, 3rd grade at Rosenauer in 2019. It was a full circle moment for me to return to the district that educated me, to educate the future generation of Jackson. It has been an honor and a privilege to teach at Rosenauer these last 5 years. However, it has also been very difficult as a teacher and a parent to witness firsthand the impacts of S2. The cuts have been devastating and our students deserve so much more. I am deeply invested in this district, as we all are. We need the state to invest in us too. Thank you.
My name is Dawn Lozer. I've been a teacher at Rosenauer School for over 22 years. You can see I'm around so long I still use paper and pen. I'm heartbroken for myself, for my students, and all my friends at Rosenauer School, and the families. I know I'm preaching to the choir because I know many of you have had your children there and have worked there right alongside of us. I just wanted to share a quick story with you. Recently at a retirement party, one of the retired teachers, who's been a proud Johnson teacher for many years, asked our wonderful music teacher, Miss Mason, so which school do you like best? Do you like Johnson or do you like Rosenauer best? And she said, without hesitation, Rosenauer. And the teacher said to her, well, why? Why is that? What's so great about Rosenauer? And she said, it's just the staff, it's the students, it's everything. And she said, when you walk in those doors, it's like coming to a second home. And that is the truth.
Barbara Indero. I live in Jackson, and I worked at the Rosenauer School for 35 of my 40 years as a paraprofessional. I call it my family because at Rosenauer, we're not a staff, we're a family. From our principals, and I worked under 6 principals, to every one of us. We made many friends there. During my years, I worked under 6 principals, and all of them became part of our family. Their office doors were always open. No problem was too small. Just knock on the door and you would be welcomed inside. It's hard to explain how great Rosenauer was to someone who has never visited there. I also remember the sad times, and in my 35 years, and under the 6 different principals, that every time there was a budget cut, Rosenauer was the first thing that was said. And that's why it's hard for us right now. We lived through all that for all those years. And it wasn't because we were told, we were never told that was happening. And that made it a little bit sadder for us. But when we heard, we would always go back to school no matter what was going on, keeping the kids happy, teaching the children, seeing the smiles on their faces each and every day. The children always came first, not how we felt. I will always treasure the time I spent at Rosenauer. Let me say this to my family, with retirees and the teachers that are still there. They can take us out of Rosenauer, but they can never take Rosenauer out of our hearts. We are the Rosenauer family for now, forever, proud and strong. Thank you.
I'll go first since she's signing her name. I'm Isaac. I was here at the public something about this budget, and I'd like to start off by I just want to offer my condolences to those who are losing a very valuable school in our district. It must be extremely tough on you, and it's very unfortunate that we're losing Rosenauer because, as it's been shown, it seems like the Department of Education just doesn't seem to care about us. Yeah, I looked at the budget up there on the slides, losing an extra around $3 to $4 million. That is very tough, and it's very concerning about the future because if you weren't worried now, I meant before, you should be worried now because there could still be further cuts. I don't know how long it's going to be that they're going to keep cutting away till we may not have anything left. There may be no district for any future students. It's very concerning. Also, bus subscriptions, don't do that. We don't want another subscription service. We don't want bus flicks. That does not sound good for anyone here. Overall, it's just a terrible situation because it seems like we don't have any control over our future while people who haven't probably even been to Jackson before are making all the choices saying, you can't do this because it's bad, when there's a logical reason like hazardous busing because there are literally no sidewalks to get to schools. And I even did some research. When I went to Crawford, before I went to private school, I decided to measure and figure out, would I be affected by this? And I discovered by 0.2 miles, I would have been affected by that, and that is not good. it's going to cause a lot more traffic just to get students to schools, because now you don't have hazardous busing. There is literally no public transport alternatives because we are in the middle of literal nowhere. And it's very unfortunate, especially to those at Rosenauer, for the kids there, they may be separated from their friends depending on what school they go to, whether it's Johnson, Holman, Switlick, or any of the other. It's, like I said before, a terrible situation, and I don't really have any answers on how to solve this. But in conclusion, it's a sad situation. I don't have any answers, and really the only answer I do have is, if possible, go on strike. I don't know what that'd solve, but it'd prove a point saying that, hey, if you keep further on us, there won't be anything left of us. Thank you.
Deb Jones, I'm a Jackson resident and an employee. And before I go anywhere, I have to say I don't believe in coincidence. I followed that young man the last time I was at the mic, and he has proven himself yet again that you are not just a student. You have carried yourself again with dignity and professionalism, so kudos to you. I have many things that I have questions about, but for this point, the 9.9% cap, and maybe I'm not understanding it, but as Jackson taxpayers, we have already paid our school tax, and we are not seeing that in our budget. And now it's left to you guys to have to say, let's raise it another 9.9. And again, I'm going to say that's on top of our already going up township taxes. We're all being reassessed. What is our guarantee that that 9.9 levy is going to be seen in our budget? We're leaving it to them to vote on. The state is putting every single person on this board and our administrators in an awful position. And where's the guarantee? I've said it at other meetings, I would not want to be you, but unfortunately, our governor has left it in your hands as well. We need a guarantee. I am not okay paying 9.9% more if I don't even know that it's coming into my school district.
Is that something we could, like, talk about? Because I feel like there's some misinformation out there, because that's a local, okay.
Good evening. My name is Allison Shear. I've been a Jackson resident for 19 years. Both of my children, one has gone through Rosenauer. She's now going into high school. My son would be going into 5th grade at Rosenauer. And to address not telling your staff and not telling the parents that we were not going into that school into September is not okay. Because teachers were making preparations for the following year. My son specifically was a safety and training. Now that is going to be taken away from him. How do you tell a 9-year-old he earned something that he will no longer have? How do you tell a 9-year-old that he is going to a new school, possibly without his friends that he has been with since kindergarten? How do you explain that to a 9-year-old? Adults can survive and they can understand that, but a child is different, especially children who suffer from anxiety. There was one thing that was said earlier, addressing students' needs. Some of that is in black and white, and it is on your papers in the school districts. Other children internalize things. And to shut the doors without any preparation, you are giving yourselves 1 month to redistrict 250 children and to keep class sizes somewhat down where they can learn efficiently. I don't understand how that's going to work. My recommendation would be to try to reassess this, keep Rosenauer open for at least 1 more year, and make plans. Make a plan that is effective for the success of these children. Make a plan that all these staff members have a place to go the following year. That is what I would suggest. My daughter going into high school had the foundation of Rosenauer, that small school that no one talks about, the first one on the cut list because it's not as pretty as the other ones that have 2 stories and atrium ceilings and all this stuff that is unnecessary in learning. What matters are them. That's what matters. They deserve to know, the children deserve to know, and they need time. So that would be my suggestion to you, is to try to figure out how to keep it open so they can have proper closure. I believe that the children here in Jackson deserve better. And my daughter in middle school was in advanced math, advanced literacy. She was on the Junior Honor Society, the Art Honor Society, because of them. Your little school in Rosenauer, the foundation that she had, and the staff here in Jackson. So I would ask you to please reconsider rushing the decision to close down Rosenauer. One more thing, I think I'm running out of time, but as far as hazardous transportation, if you watch on Facebook the Tri-County Scanner News, there is at least 1 to 2 accidents on our roads leading to these schools every single day in this town. It is not safe for these children to be walking on these streets. And parents should not have to pay a subscription to ensure that their children get there safely. Thank you.
My name is Cindy Cromwell. I'm a 37-year resident in Jackson. Back in 1991, my 3 older daughters went to Rosenauer, and it was a wonderful school. I adopted 2 little girls, and my 2 little girls, the first day I was bringing them to Rosenauer, said, "I love this school." I said, "How do you know you love Rosenauer? You've never even stepped foot in it." Because Emily, Olivia, and Amanda had such a good time and such a good experience. I know I'm going to love Rosenauer. My older 3 daughters, they're very accomplished because of what they got in Rosenauer. And my second daughter's kindergarten teacher is here still. My 2 daughters, my youngest daughter, she has special needs I didn't even know. But there was a teacher who came alongside of her and me, Mrs. Levine, and she said, "I know what we can do to help her." And my daughter now is making such progress because this little school came alongside my daughter and helped her. And it's going to be a real shame if you let Rosenauer go. It is a family. It's just an amazing school. And I want to know if they get redistricted. My daughter last night slept in her Rosenauer shirt and cried herself to sleep. Okay, if she goes to Johnson, where does Johnson go? Does Johnson go to Getz or McCullough? If she goes to Crawford, will she go to McCullough? Her older sister's going to McCullough next year. But where will she go? If she goes to Johnson, will she be redistricted again when she gets to middle school? I know that's 3 years in advance, but those are things they're thinking. She also was a safety, and she said, I'm not going to be a safety now. She worked hard. She came from standing in the back of the classroom, rocking, to being a safety, and now that's going to be taken away from her. I understand you guys are in a tough position. I can't imagine, and Mr. Palmieri, my daughter was in school with your daughter. I can't imagine how you're feeling right now, and I appreciate everything you're doing. But these kids are affected. They're wondering, is the kid down the street going to be in school with me? Is my friend down the street going to be in my class with me this year? I don't even know. They're afraid. Are they going to have an opportunity to go to the school that they're going to be taken to and look at it and walk around to the school so they understand, they have familiarity with it before the first day of school? Because they did that with the McCullough kids. The kids in 5th grade going to McCullough, they went over there a couple of times. And these kids, are they just going to be thrown into another school, put on a bus and sent to a school? Those are all things that they're worrying about. My daughter was in We Build. Is she going to be in We Build next year? She's so concerned and scared. She told me last night, Mommy, I'm scared because I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm trying to be positive and I'm trying to encourage her, but they're scared. And I think it's a shame that the state did this to our school. And I think the state needs to look at why some towns are getting more money than we are. Why? I don't understand it, but they're affecting children, little children's lives.
Are there any additional agenda questions or comments? There will be another session for public comment, but anything on agenda items? See no one come forward. I need a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Ms. Permilli is going to respond to some of those questions.
I really wanted to point out two main points. One is these students who were assigned safeties will still have the opportunity to be a safety. We've already discussed that. We will make sure that happens. We also will provide opportunities for our students to have orientation and opportunity to go to their new schools, see their new schools, tour their new schools. You know, I think we can all agree here, we all care about our kids, and that's what's important here, is making sure we can make this as smooth as possible. I know that there was some questions about the 9.9. So I just wanted to mention that the 9.9 is the tax levy. So think about the 2% cap we have every year. That's what we're allowed to raise the Jackson taxes to bring in directly from the township taxes to the school. So Deb, those monies go directly from the township to the school. There's no in between there. So we would, if it passes, you would strike the 9.9, that money would come directly to the school through the tax levy, through the township. Yes, it is a law, and it is a one-time legislative action. So it's for the 1 year. That 2% cap would go back into place the following year. Mr. Baginski, anything to add to that? I think I captured that, right? Okay. And I just want to reiterate, our Rosenauer staff and families are wonderful, fabulous. There is no arguing this, and that this is not something we want to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Permilli. I need a motion to move finance.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron?
For me, on their finance, number 5 and number 6 are going to be a no. All others are going to be yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
For me, everything is a yes, except for I am voting yes for number 5, but I am voting no for number 6. And I just want to mention that I do not sleep at night. Making this decision does not come easy. It disgusts me what our state has done to our children. It disgusts me that there are mandates that have to be followed that no longer fit the narrative in our state. The biggest narrative that is important to our children, and it says here, the Constitution of the State of New Jersey states that the legislature shall provide for the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of free public schools for the instruction of all children in the state between the ages of 5 and 18 years. We are not doing that at the moment. So I just wanted everyone to know that is where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Dr. Osmond?
Okay, I am voting yes for everything except number 5. The tax levy is a no and the budget is a no. I want to explain why I'm voting no. So there are 4 reasons that I'm voting no for the tax levy and obviously the budget. I don't believe that the state allocated funds fairly, and in my opinion, it's unethical to say we messed this up, we didn't send it to the correct places, so now we'll give you this wonderful opportunity to double tax you, right? And even with that 10%, 9.9% increase, you watched the presentation, you're still losing everything that they said there. So we're still not providing a thorough and efficient education. The second reason, I'm just not comfortable with closing schools, increasing class sizes, losing busing, losing the arts, losing sports, losing programs, basically giving the taxpayers less and then charging them more, even if it is only a one-time thing. The third reason is I feel that all districts should play by the same rules, and they should apply across the board. And I don't want to bring names of other districts in here, but if you look to your east, we could see very clearly that this is not the case. And I have a big problem with that. It should be equal rules and following the same steps and, fairly distributing. And then the last thing is, I find it hard to, during a time of where inflation is crazy and everything costs more, and we don't know if people could really afford this or not. People are struggling to begin with. And then you open the newspaper and you see districts spending over $50,000 who were given funding to have team building projects, team building parties. And so I cannot support this budget or a 10% increase to my neighbors for those 4 reasons. And there's many other reasons, but those are the main 4. So I hope you can understand where I'm coming from, and the state needs to do better.
I just want to clarify. So yes to everything, no to 5 and 6?
Yes, no to the budget, no to tax levy.
Mrs. Rivera?
Items 5 and 6, no. Yes to everything else.
Mrs. Cass?
I vote no to number 6. I do not support this budget at all.
Could you say that
The
one
rest
more-
is yes.
Say that one more time.
The rest is yes, no to number 6.
No to 6.
Only 6, yeah.
And Mr. Palmieri?
So finance number 5 is the 9.9% tax levy increase that the state would like us to pass. They're giving us this wonderful one-time shot to increase residents' taxes. Jackson residents already pay an income tax well over $60 million a year. That income tax is supposed to be repurposed to the school district to fund the schools. However, well over 40 million of that is being repurposed to other districts. And now they want us to increase our taxes again. I'm a no vote for number 5. Number 6 is the tentative budget that you just saw today. That's going to include closing Rosenauer, eliminating 70 staff positions, increase class sizes, and all the rest. I'm a no vote to that. We have kids in trailers. We should not be closing schools until we get our kids out of trailers. So I'm a no vote to 5, no vote to 6, yes to the rest.
So just to clarify, so resolution number 5 and number 6 under finance did not pass.
Mr. Palmieri. As the state monitor, I'd just like to explain something and then a decision. In order to have this budget proceed in the process that's required by the state, the purpose, obviously, of the dates involved in this process have to do with when your tax levy is determined, which means whether or not there's going to be a tax increase that will, of any kind, that will support your school system and have the money there collected by the township in order to transfer to the school as the school year goes on. In order to do that and strike that tax levy, it must be approved by the county Department of Education. And the county has reviewed and worked with me and also the administration to get this requirement by the state, it's not a local requirement, of a balanced budget presented by law from the superintendent to the Board of Education for their vote, which is what you've just seen and what just happened. The defeat of that stops the process again and means that we have to go back and start all over without time being there to do that, and with a directive from the Commissioner of Education that is requiring every school district in the state of New Jersey to present a balanced budget. So I must inform the board tonight that I, as the state monitor, are overturning your vote on number 5 and number 6. There is no choice here if this process is to move forward. It means that the budget and the process itself will now go to the county for approval by the county superintendent and the business administrator, and that the January 17th meeting then will present this budget for final adoption by the board, and you will have another vote at that time.
Thank you, Ms. Morris, for updating us. I do want to let the residents of Jackson know that we're not done yet. I promise you, we're not done yet. At the end of this meeting, I am going to ask that we go back into closed session for client-attorney, what's that? Privilege. I need a motion to move facilities.
Motion. Second.
Roll call.
Mr. McCarron.
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas.
Yes.
Dr. Osmond.
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera.
Yes.
Mrs. Cass.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes. I need a motion to move programs.
Motion. Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron.
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas.
Yes.
Dr. Osmond.
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera.
Yes.
Mrs. Cass.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes. Before I motion for students, I need to turn it over to our board attorney, Mr. Zittimer.
So we have 2 additional student resolutions. This will be students number 75. Resolved that the board affirms the finding of HIB in case number 265549 JLH 0507 2024, and be it further resolved that the family shall be provided with a written decision along with information on the right of appeal to the commissioner. 76 will read, resolved that the Board of Education affirms the finding of HIB in case number 264922 LHS 0430204, and be it further resolved that the family shall be provided with a written decision along with information on the right of appeal to the commissioner.
Thank you. I need a motion to move students.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron.
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas.
Yes.
Dr. Osmond.
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera.
Yes.
Mrs. Cass.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes. Before I motion to move personnel, I once again need to turn it over to our board attorney, Mr. Zittimer.
Resolved upon the recommendation of the superintendent that the board rescinds the appointment of employee ID number 2342415/104591 for 10-day summer work.
Thank you, Mr. Zimmer. I need a motion to move personnel.
Motion.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. McCarron?
Yes.
Mrs. Barocas?
Yes.
Dr. Osmond?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivera?
Yes.
Mrs. Cass?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Motion 38, document 1A, number 23. I abstain. Yes to the rest. I need a motion to open the public forum on any topics pertaining to the Board of Education.
Motion.
Second.
Please sign in and state your name and whether or not you are a Jackson resident. Each person is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to speak. No person may speak more than once until all topics have been heard.
Deb Jones, still a Jackson resident. I'm really speaking to you, Mrs. Morris, because if I speak to them, I'm preaching to the choir. And I understand that you have a job to do, and I can accept that. What I can't accept is that our governor has left the burden to fall solely on you. So with that, I think there's things that you need to know, like the students and the families that are part of Rosenauer. Those parents, in many cases, can be very active in their children's education because we're a neighborhood school. They do not all have the ability to drive there. They can come into classrooms to read to their kids' classes. They can come in for parties. They can come in for the moving up ceremonies and the end of year parties that we graciously welcome them with. And you take those kids, those students, you're moving them through the district. And I say you because by us not getting our funding, it does fall on you. And that puts students isolated in their new buildings, not by the staff, not by the other students in the building, but because they are now separated from what their parents can and cannot do as part of their school career. I'm not okay with that, and I don't think you should be either. I don't understand how closing a school could be fair to anybody, especially when I've heard it from you. We have been fiscally responsible. Jackson School District and every single person that represents us has been fiscally responsible. Governor Murphy has not been fiscally responsible. He has been fiscally responsible to the districts that he wants to be. That's not okay. We are part of New Jersey. We are taxpayers. We are Jackson. I'm just not okay with it. If our district was treated fairly, we wouldn't be standing here having to do this. We wouldn't have to be having our administrators and our Board of Ed sit there as the fall guys of the people ripping the carpet out from under our learners who work hard every single day. It's not okay. You know, our hands might be tied as a district. Governor Murphy's hands are not tied. He's choosing to keep them at his side. Again, not okay. You know, and I know to put it into a sports thing, they talk about pay to play. Murphy needs to start paying to play. He's playing in our town. He needs to give us the money. And I do not mean it with any disrespect to you, but again, he put you here. And it's not okay. I understand you represent him, but you're really representing every person here. Staff, student, family, taxpayer. And we need someone to fight for us. So I appreciate everything you did, but I would really appreciate you working a little bit harder for us. Thank you.
Isaac Elsner, surprisingly, still a Jackson resident as of 10 seconds ago. I was not expecting to be back up here, but in light of what just happened, I do have some questions and comments. First off, what does overturned exactly mean, Ms. Morris? Do you mean that the budget is still going to be enforced, or is it going to arbitration? So the county will apply the budget if it's passed?
We will respond, ask as many questions as you want within your 3 minutes time frame, and then we will answer them when you're done. I don't want it to take away from your time.
Okay. Because that's like the one major question, because if he just overturned your decision, that is just a threat to democracy. We voted for you, not me, because I was not old enough at the time, but we voted for you. We did not vote for you. You were instated by the New Jersey government, and I don't like the decision that you just overturned their decision. They represent the people. You don't. So please let their decision stand. And the second question to be asked after I finish speaking is, if the budget, which I assumed you did not approve, if that does not get approved on July 17th and the deadline passes, what exactly will happen to the Jackson School District? Because I may have been the guy to say go on strike, but there is obviously still need to operate the school district. What would exactly happen if the deadline passes? Does the district just stop operating? What happens to the students? But overall, I was not expecting any of that voting stuff to go the way it did, and I do stand behind your decision because obviously we have not been treated fairly by the Department of Education. As it was revealed the last time I was here, Lakewood could apply for a loan, but for some reason we can't. Don't know why that's the case, but that's the case. Welcome to New Jersey, the unfair state. And I've had this comment brewing in my head, and this should just be the mandate. Public services, like schools, shouldn't be expected to operate like companies and make a profit. That's unreasonable. I don't know why we're treating public services like New Jersey Transit, schools, utilities, why they're like companies. They should be serving us, not the people who own them, to make a profit. That makes no sense at all, and that's the exact reason why we're here, because apparently the Department of Education is the Department of Money Management now. It's not about educating our students. Anyways, in conclusion, I support your decision, but be careful because I have no clue what exactly happens after if the budget doesn't pass, and yeah, thank you for your time.
Alexis Kleinman, I'm a Jackson resident. I'm a retired teacher from a private school in another town. And this year, my first year of retirement, I was privileged to be a daily substitute in Jackson. And I want to tell you, I really have been impressed with the level of education going in and out of all of these classrooms and the dedication of all the teachers. I came up here because I am extremely troubled by the fact that we have elected these men and women who are serving us diligently. They, in our democratic republic, cast a vote, and with one word, that vote was overturned. And I think we really, really have to think about that.
I'm Kathy Tapiro, Jackson resident since 2006, son of Memorial. I have 3 questions, so I'll just state those questions. Why is the state permitted to not fully fund its transportation and security mandates, therefore costing the district somewhere in the neighborhood of $8 million? My second question is whether I should infer from the overturning of the board's vote that the state is okay with a 5-year-old walking 2 miles to his elementary school on a 45-mile-an-hour road with no shoulder in January when it's 10 degrees. And my third question is, what are other districts in this situation doing that have $20 million or so, Toms River, $100 million, Lakewood? What budgets are they submitting, and where is that money coming from if the state is not giving it an aid in lieu? Thanks. And as a former Johnson PTO president, if in fact Rosenauer closes, I promise we will love you and your children.
Amy Howells, Jackson resident. I was not prepared to get up and speak, but I can't sit there. I'm outraged, disgusted that we're in this situation. My youngest just graduated Rosenauer. All of these fine teachers and back there helped her from this tiny, shy little kid just blossom and bloom. My older daughter went through Rosenauer. She is in middle school. She gets straight A's because of all of these lovely teachers. I don't understand how you're going to just take all of these kids and just plop them wherever. We need time. You can't just close a school in a month and then say, hey, we're just gonna figure it out and put them here and there. The whole district needs to be redistricted. Every student needs to find their home and figure it out. You're gonna take Rosenauer and put them here and put them there and just separate them all? You can't do that. You need time to prepare. I loved your idea about waiting a year, if that's ultimately what has to happen to Rosenauer. But I am not for closing Rosenauer. These teachers are amazing. I sat here a few months ago when even last year, sat here when Ms. Permilli said, selling it solves it for 1 year. What are you gonna do after that? It's 1 year of money. It's not continuing. The busing situation, horrible. Exactly. How do you have a child, an elementary school child, walking to school 2 miles? Have you driven around Jackson? There are no sidewalks here. There are crazy drivers everywhere, even when there is sidewalks and crosswalks. I don't trust my children to hardly walk anywhere because of the non-safe roads that we have. I think this entire situation is disgusting. Pulling all of these programs, teachers losing their jobs. What happens to all of these wonderful Rosenauer teachers? Are you just going to plop them anywhere? They're just completely out of a job. That's what I want to know. What happens to all of them that have been here for years supporting our children? I am so furious. You need to go back and you need to figure out how to make this work for us. We are not getting our fair share, and to just overturn a board's decision is not okay. We need help. This township needs help. Why is Lakewood allowed to do stuff? Why is Newark getting, $1 billion and we get nothing? This is ridiculous. Thank you, Ms. Permilli. Thank you, Mr. Palmieri. Thank you, Mrs. Katz, and the entire board for what you're doing. We see it. We appreciate it. Please don't give up this fight. We need help from the state. Thank you.
Hello, Alicia Thacker. I've been here my whole life, 37 years. My mom was a teacher. She retired. She was at Getz. My mother-in-law is a substitute teacher at Liberty right now. And my husband and I went all through Jackson schools together. We did everything here. My biggest concern is that I live on the corner of Cooksbridge and Beam. So I don't know if you know South Boston is a cut through. So it just makes our road a highway. Right there, I mean, you can even ask Jeff Hemba, I think he's a sergeant now, right? He just became sergeant, whatever. But he knows all the time. He had cops sit there all the time, trying to help the people just blow by the buses. Even the stop signs are out, the lights are on. It doesn't matter, and it's all over Jackson. I know it is. It's terrible. But if there's accidents all the time, I don't understand. Like someone else said, that's a 40 mile an hour, 45. Doesn't mean people are doing that. They're going way faster than that. I have a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old that now I'm gonna have to walk to school. I'm only 2 blocks away. I have to cross Cooksbridge and Manhattan. Doesn't sound far, it's not far, but it's gonna be a nightmare. I'm gonna have to run with a stroller in all the weathers, dark, light, doesn't matter. It's just, the traffic here is horrendous, and we're already backed up all down Manhattan both ways with people already dropping off and picking up the kids. And it's every school, I know. So it's gonna be terrible, just that. But it's just the point now, Do we have crossing guards? Because we also don't have sidewalks either. So only one car can fit down our road if people are parked. So I'm gonna have to come into the street with my kids every time there's a car parked. So do we have crossing guards to get across these highways? And like the safety of everybody, even just the parents trying to get in and trying to get to work and doing the daily activities. So that's just my question. Do we have crossing guards? How are we gonna get all these kids safely to school every single day? And it was kind of a little slap in the face that you just right away just said no to everything. It would have been great if we maybe heard no a different day, but like to hear everybody pour their hearts out. These poor women, I was sitting behind them, I know they've all been crying the whole time. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible for the students, staff, everybody. But such a slap in the face. It's just like going to any meeting in Jackson. We all know how that goes. You could say what you want, we could all stand up and fight for this town, and nobody listens, and it's sad. And now the kids are feeling it. So hopefully you'll change your mind. Thank you, everybody.
Allison Shearer, Jackson resident. Thank you to the board for voting no. We really do appreciate that, and we do understand your hands are tied. Again, I'm going to turn my attention to you, Ms. Morris. I do think it's pretty insulting that you had 48 hours to think that over and to take into account everything that was said tonight. All that you asked for, all the numbers, they gave it to you. Parent concerns, we all gave it to you. And less than 30 seconds, you turned them down. That's really, really upsetting. Because we have to remember these are children. They're not grown adults. And these children, like I said before, who knows them best? The teachers. Who's redistricting? Are you going to redistrict them? Are you going to put that on them to pull them away from everything that they've known? That makes no sense to me. So as a Jackson resident for 19 years, I would like the ability to choose. If you are going to close down our school, I want to choose where my child will attend in September. And I believe, being a resident for 19 years, paying all the taxes to support these schools, I think I should have that right. So I'm asking for one of two things. Give us time to figure this out with the understanding that Rosenauer will close after next year, and give us time to properly district these children so they don't feel lost and alone in a bigger building. Or at least let us parents who know our children best choose where they go in September. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Eileen Zielinski. I've been a resident probably for about 20 years now. Mrs. Morris, let me ask you something. If you were in our shoes when your kids were little, how would you feel? How would you feel that a state monitor came in and overturned all their hard work? How would you feel knowing that the school that your child went through for elementary school, we all love Rosenauer, these teachers are amazing. They are all angels to our children. How would you feel if you were told, sorry, governor's not going to give you any more money, deal with it? Because that's exactly what you did to us. When I moved down to Jackson 20 years ago, I chose to allow our oldest to go to a private school. Excellent education. Went on to Mates, excellent education. My husband and I moved out. Then we were surprised with another child. We moved back to Jackson. He has special needs. We were told, go back to Jackson by Children's Specialized Hospital. Jackson Township schools are the best in the state for your child's needs. We deliberately found a house within the Rosenauer district because we were told, again, it is the best school for your child. It is one of the best schools in the area. You can't ask for more. These angels, my son is going into 10th grade. He gets A's and B's on his report card. He no longer needs physical therapy. He no longer needs speech therapy. All because of those teachers and because of Jackson Public Schools. And for you to be so, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but to make a decision that overturns all these hardworking men and women and all us taxpayers in literally 10 seconds, you need to go back to the governor. Not these people to a table and figure out what to take away again. You need to go back to the governor and you need to say, hey, you did Jackson a wrong and you need to fix it and we need to get our money back. We need to keep Rosenauer open. We need to have busing. Have you ever tried to walk down a street in Jackson? Trust me, you don't want to. Because you're taking your life into your hands. You can see buses picking up kids, whether it be going out of district or in town, and you have people flying right past those stop signs. Doesn't matter that there's blinking lights and a stop sign. Doesn't matter when there's a radio car nearby. It doesn't matter that there's crossing guards in the small areas that we have it. People just drive right by. How are you going to feel knowing that you've said, yeah, you don't need busing? When a child is struck and killed, are you going to go to the parents and say, I'm sorry? Are you going to go to the funeral? Are you going to pay the funeral expenses? Are you going to go into the elementary school and say, I'm sorry, kids. I'm sorry that you lost your friend. But it's all about the almighty dollar. To the board, thank you so much. Thank you for an amazing education for our son. And Rosenauer teachers, I love you guys. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Good evening. My name is Caitlin Levine, and I've been a Jackson resident for over 30 years. I'm a former student of Johnson, Getz, and Memorial. I'm an elementary teacher here now, and I'm really disgusted with how this has been handled. I'm so sad for my son, my daughter, my nieces, my nephews, and all of my former students within the district, that they will not have the same educational opportunity that I had. Where is the equity? This is for you, Ms. Morris. Where is the equity? Why is it that we're the ones who have to fix this? This mess was not created by us. It was created by the state, the Commissioner of Education, and the governor. So where are they? Why aren't they here tonight? Why are we all here? Why did they have to fight for us? If Jackson doesn't clean up the mess that New Jersey made for our district, we're not going to be allowed to open. What's going to happen to my children, to all of our children, and to all of the talented and dedicated educators within our district? Thank you for your time.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing no one come forward, I need a motion to close public forum.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. We'll now have board comments, starting with Mr. McCarron. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Permilli, would you like to answer any additional questions? Sure, yes.
So to the young man who asked the question about what does it mean to, I think you asked, what does it mean to overturn what does it mean? Certainly. So under New Jersey law, when a school district gets an advance loan payment like we did, a state aid payment, the state appoints a state monitor to oversee the finances of the district. That person is obviously Ms. Morris. By statute, if Ms. Morris does not agree with a financial decision made by the Board of Education by law, she has a right to reverse or overturn whatever decision was made, and that's what happened tonight. So the board voted no on those two resolutions, the 9.9% or 9 whatever it is percent increase on the tax levy, as well as the budget. She reversed both of those decisions, which means they will go into effect, assuming it happens at the July meeting, which kind of piggybacks to your next question. What happens if the board votes it down again in July, the final budget that is? Presumably, I would speculate Ms. Morris would, assuming, do the same thing, reverse the board's decision and adopt a budget for us, which is her statutory right. Okay. Ms. Morris, I think you wanted to respond to some other issues?
Yes, I would like to explain a couple of things. I was appointed and came into the district, I think it was at the middle or the end of January. I have been here every week, 2 or 3 days, mostly I would think 2, since January. Just about every hour that I have spent in the district since I was first assigned, I have been working with your superintendent and your business administrator and their staff on this budget. So I would like, although I know you disagree with my decision, I would like to explain that I did not simply hear this within the last 10 seconds and overturned it. I had to be prepared tonight for this process to move on, for your superintendent to be able to prepare the kinds of things that you've been talking about, whether it be the reassigning of teachers or the reassigning of children. She has to move on. She has moved every day that I have been here with different proposals that she has run by me, and it has been as painful for her this evening and for the business administrator as it is for you. Trust me when I tell you that I've seen, and I'm sure you know, as an older person in education, I've been associated with and seen a lot of people in different school districts. She is a child advocate, and she is very, very disturbed, as has been her whole staff, by what had to happen tonight. So this was not simply something that I did off the top of my head. In answer to the lady's question that asked, how would I feel if this were, I would be as outraged and as upset as you are, if it were my children. Yes, I understand it. Your superintendent has done everything, including personal emails to the commissioner, as I have, meeting with the staff in Trenton, communicating with them on a steady basis. This is not something that was done overnight or done quickly. And as she has indicated, between now that the process is moving as of tonight, between now and July 17th, all of these proposed possible cuts will be revisited, and they will be again assessed, and your concerns and your opinions will be taken under consideration. I can promise you that, but I also hope that you will understand, and I do. I know any attack on a school system when you're a part of it hurts, whether you're a parent or whether you're a teacher. And I appreciate, I've heard your comments. I can tell you right up front, there are very, very few of them that have not already been communicated. There are just certain laws and bills that have been passed that regulate this system, including the time frame that we're looking at. So I wanted to share that with you and turn it back over to Mrs. Permelli.
Ms. Permilli, did you want to add anything to any questions? Are you okay? Okay. Board comments, starting with Mr. McCarron, please.
I just wanted to say shame on the state for putting the responsibility on volunteer Board of Education members to raise taxes within a community that's already paying their fair share. To overturn our vote, I think, was totally improper. We are the elected people that the residents trusted. We know the community a little bit better than a state monitor does, and I would have liked to see what we voted on stand. I would ask that before you vote on a full budget, that you walk the routes to the schools and see what you're cutting. I have nothing further.
So the first thing I want to say, I don't know your name, but the young man who speaks at our meetings, I think you really should go into some advocacy work. I don't even think you realize that you're an advocate, but you truly are. And you can hone that and do something with that. So great job. As far as tonight's meeting, obviously we're all really disappointed in how this turned out. And I can't help but think, like, the state has pumped money into failing school districts for as long as I can remember, and it doesn't seem to be fixing those failing school districts. And I'm kind of curious what Ms. Morris thinks. Like, is the state just trying to get good districts to be brought down so that they could turn around and say, look, it worked, we pumped all this money in there, and now everybody's even? Because I don't really understand what the end game is. You're just going to be creating more and more failing schools that have no programs, no extracurricular activities, and there's no way that the state could say that this is producing well-rounded students and that they're getting a thorough and efficient education. So I apologize to everybody here tonight and people who are watching us at home. You could see we're trying to do all that we could do, but this is what we're up against. It's very sad. The state really needs to do better, and I encourage people to really think about who they vote in next time around.
I want to thank everyone who came out and live streamed their input, comments during this very difficult time. Congratulations to all the graduates on their moving up ceremonies and their promotions. Everyone needs to continue their advocacy work, and everyone have a safe and wonderful evening.
Thank you to everyone who came out tonight for all your speeches. I'm just so moved by everything you've all had to say. Disgusted at the state. I say it all the time, and my tagline is, I will not cut from our children so that I can drive other children to school. I think the mandates, again, as I've repeated, the mandates don't fit the narrative in the state anymore, and the people up above, they have the ability to fix the mandates and fix the laws, but they are too busy fighting amongst each other. And for those of you who have the time, maybe you'd like to join some of us for the walks from our houses to the schools. And you can film them and send them to our legislator and show them what that walk looks like. And I had no idea, but I live in Hampshire Hills, and I'm in that 2-mile range. So I will be walking with a bunch of people to show how ridiculous it is that there's no sidewalks. I can't even imagine if my children were still going to Johnson. So thank you. And like I always say, I may be little, but I am fierce. So, and I don't like to lose.
I want to start off with the good stuff. So I want to say congratulations to all the graduates. I want to thank Larita Winery for their generous donation of iPads and stands to the district. I want to thank everyone for coming out and speaking. As a hockey fan, I need to give a huge shout out to Anthony Stolars for hoisting the Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers. He was a Jackson graduate, so I think that's pretty amazing. Now the rest, you all know that I get emotional. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. We've all heard those terms. They're state mandates that are implemented, but the state mandates that school implements these measures. However, the state is not following its own guidelines. Jackson certainly has diversity. In fact, our ELL population has grown by leaps and bounds. However, the state is taking away the equity for those groups and all students. They are forcing us to cut the very programs that will give this diverse population the tools for success for their future. We had a thriving district that gave many students wonderful opportunities. We've had students accepted to some of the top colleges throughout the United States. However, by continuing to cut our budget, our students will not only be afforded those will not be afforded those opportunities any longer, yet other districts are receiving enough extra funding that they throw staff parties for over $45,000. Can you imagine that? And we have the state monitor. They don't. They also allowed a twerking contest in their high school. Again, we have the state monitor who overrules us. I don't understand. We need to cut student programming. They throw a party. Somehow that's okay. Which brings me to the inclusion term. The state has chosen which districts it wants funded and clearly which it does not. And apparently Jackson is not part of the inclusion in state funding. S2 has failed Jackson and will continue to do so unless the state finally recognizes us. We have begged for mercy. We have actually begged for them to visit us. The government, the governor, the commissioner, the Department of Education, we have invited them time and time again. And yet, they don't come. So apparently Jackson, they have deemed us irrelevant, and for our 7,700 students, it's not only disheartening, it's appalling. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude this meeting, I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of you for your dedication to our students, teachers, and community. It is no secret that we are facing significant challenges due to the unfair state funding model that has been forced upon us. Despite these hurdles, we remain steadfast in our commitment to providing the highest quality education for every child in our district. Our schools are the heart of our community, and the inequitable distribution of state funds threatens to undermine the progress and achievements we have worked so hard to attain. And not just we, but there are many people I'm looking at in these front few rows that work that hard every day for these children. It is essential for everyone to understand that these funding disparities are not just numbers on a budget sheet. These translate into tangible impacts on our students' educational experiences, opportunities, and future successes. We are advocating tirelessly for a more just and equitable funding system. Our children deserve the same resources and opportunities as those in more favorably funded districts. We have seen firsthand the incredible potential within our schools, and it is our responsibility to ensure the potential is not stifled by systemic inequities. I urge you all to continue your support and advocacy. Reach out to your state representatives, share your stories, and make your voices heard. Together we can drive the change needed to secure a fairer and brighter future for our students. Thank you for your unwavering commitment and support. Let's stand united in our mission to defend our district and fight for the fair treatment our children deserve. Thank you. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I've decided to rethink that for another time. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
By acclamation. Aye.
Aye.